Hello, Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of the All Steelers Talk Midweek Report. My name is Stephen Thompson, coming to you from Pittsburgh South Side, ready to talk a little Pittsburgh Steelers football on this week after a victory, a week in which the Steelers have a little momentum heading into their next game against the Atlanta Falcons. It's a short week. It's a short week for sure. Played on Monday to get back at it on Sunday, and they're a little banged up. They're a little banged up, as Mike Tomlin alluded to during his weekly press conference. The Steelers have some minor injuries. Obviously, Najee Harris, maybe a little more serious, but some bumps and bruises to T.J. Watt, Larry Ogunjobi, Minka Fitzpatrick, and Miles Jack. They were minor, but significant enough that Mike Tomlin felt the need to address them in his weekly press conference. I don't think he would have used names if any of those guys were really fully healthy and going to be ready to go. He did also say that he's going to have to adjust his weekly kind of practice schedule or plan for practice to make sure that those guys are involved in the preparation for the Atlanta Falcons, who the Steelers play this week, but also not being stressed physically and still able to kind of stay healthy and manage those bumps and bruises. I mention all of this because I think this is going to be a big test for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you can interpret test however you want. I mean, these are two, I believe, 4-win teams coming into this game. This is not like a game between Super Bowl contenders or anything. I'm sorry, excuse me. The Falcons have 5 wins. Excuse me. Steelers have 4. Falcons have 5. But either way, this is not a battle of Super Bowl contenders. Despite the fact that both of these teams have shown some really positive things, maybe some more positive things than people expected. I'd say that's definitely the case in terms of the Falcons. I don't think anyone expected them to even breach 5 wins at all, let alone have 5 wins with 5 left to play this season. The Steelers, it's been more of a slow burn. I think there have obviously been some more encouraging things as of late, especially, it's easy to feel that way coming off of a win, but I think even in that loss to the Bengals last week, 2 weeks ago, they looked much better. The improvements are really clear. So just to that end, I think you're going to have 2 really hungry teams coming into this game. Teams that are eager to prove themselves, teams that feel they are better than their record indicates, and are going to look to prove that against a team that they see as very beatable. I think that's a perspective that both sides can share. Again, I mention all of this to say that I think that this game against the Atlanta Falcons is really going to come down to a test of wills. It's really going to come down to who wants it more, which is a football cliche, but I think the matchups really lend itself to that kind of game, and I'll tell you why. The Atlanta Falcons are in the top 10 in the NFL in yards per carry. They're one of the best rushing offenses in the league in terms of efficiency, not even just pure volume. They do run it a lot behind Marcus Mariota, who has great legs, maybe not a strong passer, but has really tremendous legs. They've got a few great running backs, Algiers and Cordell Patterson, who's coming off of an injury. Those guys really come to mind, but they're deeper than that too. Their offensive line is big. They're aggressive. They love to play downhill. They really like to run the ball, and they do it really well. And that's what's kind of carried their offense through this season. That's just the kind of team they are. It's a pretty classic mold. Strong rushing offense, a good defense. You play ball control, try to win some low-scoring games. The Steelers, on the other hand, have one of the better rushing defenses in the NFL. And I look at these stats and I see Steelers top 6 in the NFL in rushing touchdowns allowed, in yards per carry allowed, total yards allowed. They're not getting ran on a lot. They're in the bottom 10 of the league in terms of attempts against them. So that's what I kind of mean when I say that this game is going to be a test of wills. It's going to be hat on a hat who is going to be able to stop the run better. I don't think either of these teams have real complicated running schemes, or at least the Falcons don't. It's going to be a matter of who can push the other team around, who can push who around, particularly when the Falcons have the ball. It, and I say that those Steelers numbers against the run are a little surprising because I think we all watched them against the Jets to a certain extent, against certainly against the Browns and the Patriots, and thought, and quite honestly, even the Bengals last week, the way P Ryan kind of ran over them, even without Mixon in the fold. But we watched that team try to defend against the run, and they were missed tackles. The play got worse as the game got on. They looked tired by the end of games. The teams were able to steamroll them a little bit and really close them out in really effective ways. So that was not the case on Monday against Jonathan Taylor and that really good Colts offensive line, at least in the run game. The Steelers didn't get bulldozed. In fact, quite the opposite. I thought they stood up really well against Jonathan Taylor, who by most accounts is the best running back in the league. He might not be putting up those kind of numbers this year, but that talent is still there. Same on that offensive line. They kind of lean on that attack because they have to. And I know Taylor looked a lot better in the second half, but he was not a huge factor. When the Steelers got beat, they were getting beat by Matt Ryan's arm on Monday night in Indianapolis. So I I really expect the Steelers to come out a little fired up in Atlanta. I think they know the challenge that is in front of them. I think they know the opportunity that's in front of them. Quite honestly, uh, you're kind of walking a delicate line or a thin line if you're the Steelers right now between wanting to win now, when to prove that you're taking steps forward, but then also looking towards the future a little bit. And I know that's not the job of the players, really, or the coaches. They are not looking towards the draft or anything like that. But I don't know. This team is proud. Forget the organization as a whole. Forget like the fans, but I think just the team and the guys on this team are proud, and they got a little peeved off like before the bye week. They just saw everything that was being said about them. They could see the record plain as day. They could see the talk about next year and the draft and all that. And I think they took that really personally. I think you've seen a re-energized team, and it helps obviously to play against a weaker schedule. But they are out to prove something. I think in this second half. And I don't think it's just about showing improvement for them at this point. It is about winning games. It is about really like I don't know, just proving something to themselves, proving that they belong here, that they are not, that even the Steelers at their worst are a team that can win games, that can be a 500 football team, can push someone for the playoffs. Because I think it's very easy to forget that like Steelers haven't been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs yet with 11 with they're 11 games into this season, I believe. Yeah, with 6 more to go, 11 or 12. Either way, 5 or 6 games left, like a third of they played 11 games. So 6 games left. They haven't like played their best football yet, and they're not completely out of the playoff race yet. It's a long shot, obviously, but like this team's not going to put a cap on themselves, and they're not going to count themselves out of any of their remaining games, especially because their remaining schedule is not that difficult. And I think, and it starts this week against the Atlanta Falcons, a team that they can definitely beat, but a team that's going to be hungry too, and a team that's really on their level, I think. And that's why I think that this game is going to come down to a test of wills, not only from a football standpoint about kind of the matchup and kind of how these teams are operating at this point. Just they both are kind of leaning on stronger run games right now than while their passing game kind of either takes a back seat or waits to catch up. In the case of, I think that's more the case of the Steelers, the latter part of that. But I really think this is going to come down to who can push around who in the run game and who can stand up and say, no, we're not going to let that happen. Um, it it's not going to be a pretty game, I think. I don't think it's going to be a game that is aesthetically pleasing, but if you like teams playing hard, teams with a chip on their shoulder, teams looking to prove something to someone else, then this will really be the game for you. And I quite honestly, I've watched this team for the past few weeks, ever since coming out of the bye, and I have so much more confidence in their ability to win in different ways, to show a little bit of fire, show a little bit of fight, and win some games. It this season is far from over. They have a lot still to play for, and I think they're playing that way right now. The competition really doesn't take that big of a step up. The best team that they're going to play down this final stretch of the year is probably the Baltimore Ravens or the Cincinnati. No, they don't play the Bengals anymore. No, they will. Their best opponent is the Baltimore Ravens, and that's still a beatable team too. Um, yeah, the Steelers just have so much in front of them. This matchup plays into their hands. I think they have the horses up front to contend with a team like the Atlanta Falcons, and to match up well with them. So I'm excited to see what they come out with. I'm just excited to see how this team responds to some success, quite honestly. I'm excited to see what they do when things start to go their way, when they start to figure things out, when they start to put some things on film that they do well. How do they counter adjust? How do they anticipate what's coming? And then how do they also impose their will on the team? I'm not sure if we've seen them do that so far this year. Win a game by just flattening a team that knows what's coming. And I think they can do that this week, but we'll see how it all unfolds on Sunday. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the All Steelers Talk Midweek Report. I'll be back next week, talk some more Steelers football on Monday, Wednesday, and then again on Thursday on this show. Hope you all tune in. Thanks so much. Have a good weekend.